Hello, everybody, and welcome to the C Podcast. As always, my name is Hex and Shin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Hex Ginkgo. This is a variety slice of life podcast where Hex and I talk about anything and everything we are playing, doing, watching, eating, what have you. Today is February 10th, 2021. The world is still arguably on fire, and I believe this is episode 10. Now, Hex, guess what? I have a story for you. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah. Yes, I would like to finally hear this story. I could hear you the whole time.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I couldn't hear you.
I just couldn't respond.
All right, so...
Oh, hey, I'm not peeking on my mic. No, I just peeked on my mic.
So right now, the time that we're recording this, we usually start recording at around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yep.
It is currently 8:45, because we just now started recording because of the fact that I messaged you on Discord. I got stuck in a snow ditch. And you want to know where I got stuck at, Hex, specifically?
Yeah, I was confused. I was like, all right, is that outside his house, or is that, where was that?
It was directly outside my house at the foot of my driveway. But, and you might be thinking, why didn't I just come inside to shoot the podcast, and then just get my car out of the ditch later on in the evening? And I will tell you why, and it is because it is currently still snowing in my area, and I do not know how much snow I'm supposed to be getting. And so, I would much rather get my car out as quickly as possible, out of the snow ditch, rather than have it be slightly buried in more snow, so then I have to then dig it out, and then get my car out of the ditch. Also, by the time we finish recording, it'll be 10. I might keep streaming then. At that point, it'll be midnight, and I don't even know if the tow trucks would come at that point, honestly. But, so let me tell you how this went down when I got stuck. No. We'll back up. Let me backtrack just a little bit. I'll backtrack. And let me tell you how I got stuck in the first place, alright? So to draw you a mental picture of how my driveway situates. My house actually sits on kind of like a hill in my neighborhood. So my house sits on a hill, and then the driveway comes down the hill into the street itself. The way I could describe the driveway, or at least how my garage sits in relation to the driveway, my garage sits, imagine like an S driveway. So imagine like an S going down the hill to the street, and then the top of the S is where my garage sits, okay?
Okay.
So I had to leave, so I'm cat sitting for my uncle this week, and I backed out of my garage, and already to try and turn out onto my driveway, I already could not turn my car. Like, I turned the wheel, and it just kept moving backwards in a straight line. So already I knew that it was going to be a problem, but I was just like, it's fine. I just have to make sure I can get up the driveway later tonight, and that's all I care about, because that's whatever. Getting stuck on the top of my driveway is not a problem, because I can usually maneuver and finagle my way around for the most part. At some point I can turn, just not when I want to, but at some point I can. So I get I'm coming back from my uncle's place, and I'm coming up to my driveway, and the first problem was that because it's been snowing all day, the snow plows have either stopped coming, or they just decided we'll just wait for the snow to stop and then we'll plow. But so I was driving on my street toward my driveway, and I literally couldn't turn into my driveway, because again, I would turn my wheel and my tires would just not have any purchase, and we would just keep going past my house. So there were like 3 attempts me trying to get up my driveway where I would just drive past my house on accident because I didn't have a choice. So that was problem number 1. Problem number 2 was that because of the fact that I cannot turn into my driveway, I then had to figure out, figure that out. Once I had kind of figured that out a little bit, then I was like, all right, I now have to see, can I generate enough momentum to get up my driveway now? Because again, it's on a hill. It's on a slight incline. And if I had to give the incline like a degree, I'd say it's like 20, 30 degrees, 30-degree incline, something like that. It's kind of steep. It's kind of steep. Enough that if you slip on it, you will be a little afraid of your life. That in any case. But so I tried to. So once I kind of like was able to turn a little bit and I kind of got a rhythm of it, I was like, okay. Now my car is very old. It's a 1991 black Mercedes-Benz 420 SEL.
You need to get a new car.
Yeah, that's the first step. But for now, I'm stuck with this one. It's a very nice car. I love it a lot. I love it to death. It's very nice. But it has rear-wheel drive, and that does not do well in snow.
Oh, tell me about it.
Oh,
I have a BMW. It's the same problem.
But the first attempt I tried to get up my driveway, I made it about halfway, and you know that roller coaster that like goes up and then it like slowly starts going backwards, and then it does that, like it goes forward and back like that, and that's the ride.
Mm-hmm.
That was basically my car, but instead of it going back up the driveway, it just sort of slid back into the street, and then I would try it again. So
that's fun.
Yeah, so I did that for like 2-3 times, and on the fourth time, and trust me, I tackled this from both angles. I came from like my mailbox side of the street, I came from the other side of my street, I went both ways to try and see if one way or the other it would be better. It wasn't. But the fourth time, I was like, alright, midway, like, I'm about to turn into my driveway, midway I had a thought, okay, if this doesn't work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to back into the neighbor across from my street. I'm going to back into his driveway, and then hopefully I can use that momentum to just sort of slingshot myself up my driveway if this doesn't work. So I go up the driveway, I stop about halfway. I'm like, at this point, I'm like flooring the gas pedal, and there's no traction. And I start to slide back more, and I'm like, all right, well, time to reset. And I go to turn my wheel to try and get myself back onto the street, but then my car decides to start sliding more to the left than I am accustomed to, and then I stop, and I'm like, uh-oh, I think I know where I am right now, and I hit the gas pedal, try to go forward, try to go back, I'm not moving, and I'm like, oh, shit. So, something you should also know about my driveway is that I don't know who plowed my street, I don't know who plowed my driveway, but whoever it was, they decided, hey, we're gonna leave this giant-ass mound of snow right under the corner of my driveway, and we're just gonna let it sit there. Which is really annoying, because it's also, like, right next to my mailbox, so I have to, like, either go around the mound or over the mound to get to my mail, which is a separate issue in itself. Now my left tire is now wedged in this mound of snow, and it ain't going anywhere. It's not moving whatsoever. And so I called my mom real quick to inform her what's happening, and I'm like, okay. And she's like, so what happened? I'm like, I tried to get up the driveway and I got stuck. And she's like, well, what side of the street did you come from? Like, you can't come from the non-mailbox side. You gotta try to the mailbox side. I'm like, I did both. Tried to come from both angles. It didn't work. And she's like, well, you gotta make sure, like, my mom tried to mansplain it to me of like, obviously I was doing something wrong because I couldn't get up my driveway. Like, she was trying to mansplain it to me. And she's like, you gotta make sure you turn, you gotta give it some, like, you gotta give it like a wide berth to like, turn out and then turn in. And I go, stop. You lost me at turn, because that's not happening already. You already lost
impossible.
me. I literally told her, I was like, you don't understand. My car doesn't turn. Like, I can't do step 1. Don't go to step 2 yet, because we can't get to the next part yet, because that's not happening. And so I'm like, all right, so I'm going to call AAA. Is that okay? And she's like, yeah, just call AAA. They'll get a tow truck. It'll be fine, whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I called AAA. And they're very gracious. They're very, very nice. It was actually kind of funny because I called AAA and the the phone call lady, I don't know what to call them. The phone call lady, she's like, "Hi, thank you for calling AAA. Are you in a safe place right now?" And in my head, I wanted to just respond to her and be like, "You mean like mentally, emotionally, or physically?" Because I'm not entirely sure anymore at this point. But I was like, "Yes, I'm in a safe place, blah, 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 this." And she's like, "Okay, so what's wrong with your what's wrong, right? Like, what seems to be the trouble?" And before I was able to talk to her, I was going through, like, all the automated messages and stuff like that. And she's all the automated things were like, "Please tell us what is wrong, like, what seems to be the problem. We can answer, or, like, I can respond to any of the following. Your car won't start. You need a jump start. There's a flat tire. You've been in an accident." And I'm like, all right, well, none of those. Embarrassing enough, I've just gotten my car stuck in a mound of snow.
I just can't move.
I literally was like, "I'm stuck." And the robot was like, "I'm sorry, I don't understand." And I'm like, "You gotta make me spell it out for you?" Or I don't, like, what I was tempted to tell them, like,
I got car, no drive.
I was so tempted to tell them to be like, "I got a flat tire," because, like, the car just won't go anywhere. Not necessarily because of the tire, but because of the tires. But
you said that you had a flat tire. How can we help? I actually don't have a flat tire, so you lied.
But so
you're a liar.
Yeah, so you're a fraud is what you are. But
please stop wasting our time. Sir.
Yeah, and then they hang up the phone. But then the automated voice also told me, she's like, if you are in immediate danger, please hang up and dial 911. And I'm like, all right, I want to know who called AAA asking because they were in danger that made them put this on their thing, because that's like,
that is a little worrying.
Like,
why is that your first? You can't dial 911, but you can dial AAA.
But you can call the 1-800 number for AAA. Like, wait, what?
Which one is more on your speed dial? I feel like if AAA is on your speed dial, you have a problem,
right? But so I call AAA. They get a tow truck out, and they're like, so. Do you want to get text messages? Do you want to get text messages to get updates as to where the tow truck is? I'm like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. And they're like, all right, so we'll do that. I've contacted the tow truck people. They should be there eventually. And I'm like, okay, cool, thanks.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, cool, thanks, I guess. So I hung up the phone, and I immediately get a text from AAA, and they're like, thank you for signing up for the text alerts, blah, 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 blah. And then they sent me another message of, like, you can track live where the tow truck is, similar to, like, Uber, but it's just, like, through the website, basically. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I clicked that link, and I think at this point it was, like, 7 o'clock, I think. It was, like, 7 or quarter after 7 or something like that. And I clicked the link, and they give you, like, an ETA of when the truck's gonna get there, and it says 8:12. And I'm like, okay. Not the worst thing in the world. I can handle that. I've got an hour to kill, but roughly, like, fuck it. I'm gonna go start shoveling my driveway now. Because if I can't, because eventually I'm getting up my driveway. The question is can I get up my driveway? So I'm like, I'm gonna take this time to shovel the driveway, try to get some patches where, like, if I can at least get my tires here, I should be able to get up the driveway. So I spent all my time doing that. And so surprisingly, it actually only took a half an hour for the tow truck people to get there, thankfully. So they get there at around quarter till 8. And the tow truck guy is like, all right, so I'm going to need you to sign a liability waiver, before I do anything. And he's like, I'm not going to say that anything will happen, but in case it does happen, I do need you to sign this waiver. And I'm like, I understand. I totally get it. Like, here, like, I'll sign it, whatever, sure. And he's like, okay, so I'm gonna, actually, you know what I'm gonna do? Because he's looking at where, like, he's assessing where my car is. And it's, the biggest thing was, it's just the back left tire is just wedged in this mound, so it can't go anywhere. And he's like, okay, well, you're actually pretty clear of the street, and you're pretty clear of the entrance to your driveway anyway, so... what he suggested was, he's like, well, what I might do instead is I'll actually pull into your driveway and get it to the top, and then I'll hook you up and I'll actually pull you forward, so that way eventually we can straighten you out. You can just slide out into the street itself. And I go, yeah, sure, that makes sense, totally. And he's like, okay, yeah, so we'll get you all situated. So he's hooking my car up. He's towing it out. And so what he had me do was I put the car in neutral. He towed me forward, and then once he got me to like a good once he got me like out a little bit, he's like, all right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit slack, keep your foot on the brake, and I'm gonna pull my truck forward more into your driveway so that we can pull you forward more. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that totally makes sense. He's like, all right, let me go do that. So he gets into his truck, which again is basically at the top, almost at the top of my driveway, almost. He's got maybe like a few more feet left, so he has a little bit more space to pull me forward still. He gets into his truck, and I can hear, and he presses. This is where things get awkward. He gets in his truck. I can hear him shift into drive, and all I hear are the tires just go, "Rrr, rrr, rrr," and I look at it and I go, that truck's not moving. I can hear the tires spinning, but that tow truck ain't going anywhere. And immediately I'm just thinking, did the tow truck just get stuck in my driveway? Because now there are two things in my driveway, both of which are now stuck. And I'm just like, huh. Well, this is a problem now. So, So he gets out and he goes, well, that's a problem. And I go, yeah, a bit of an issue. He's like, all right, plan B. And he goes to the back of my car and he's like, you know what? I'm going to borrow your shovel real quick. And I'm going to see if I can clear out some of the mound so you at least have more space. And then maybe what we can do is we'll just unwinch you, and that way you can hopefully have enough space to just back out into the street itself. I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's try that. And so he clears all that out. And he's like, all right, so I'm going to unhook you, and you just see if you can back out into the street. He unhooks me, and thankfully at that point, I'm able to back into the street, and he's like, okay, and so we've taken care of the problem now. My car's no longer stuck. Now the next thing is I have to make sure I can I have to figure out how I'm going to get up my driveway now. And the way that he had suggested is the same thing that I was thinking of, is I'll back into my neighbor's driveway from across the street, and I'll just try to gun it up to see if I can make it there. And thankfully, I was able to do that and get my car into my garage. But, yeah, that was not fun. So, moral of the story is, I need a new car. Is where I'm at now. Yeah, rough to say the least. Also, I will accept your invite in a second as soon as I get through all of this cutscene dialogue.
No worries. I'm just looking at MLB trades.
But yeah, so that's where I'm at today. Is I'm a little angry at the world.
Oh, for sure.
Because it was just like so awkward though, because like he pulled into my driveway fine, but then he was gonna pull into my driveway more, and he just didn't, and he just couldn't, and I was like, so what happens if both of us are stuck now? What do we do in this situation?
Invite him in for a beer and
right? Like,
chill?
It's just like,
I guess you're stuck.
We're stuck here now, like, fuck it.
Damn. Well, no big news. Anyway, my city is supposed to have quite a bit of snow tonight or tomorrow, up to 8 inches or something, which is not something that we normally get, so that'll be interesting. I'm not necessarily looking forward to it, I must say. But, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, so here's something else. So I have a list of things here that I want to talk about for today's episode. and we'll get into them now now that I'm done talking about me being late. The first thing
and snow
and snow. The first thing has to do with my town, though. It does have to do with my town because a friend of mine, he messaged me. Let me pull up the text messages real quick because it's something that just got me thinking. But let me see. When did he text me? My friend texted me from high school. He texted me February 2nd at 11 o'clock at night. And he sent me a link, this Amazon video link. And it's a movie, like some sort of documentary thing. It's called hold on, let me see if I can, because I couldn't watch it on Amazon Video because I don't have Amazon Video. But it's actually free with ads on YouTube, actually, is what I found out. It's called, the documentary is called, I think it's like The Hunt. I think The Hunt something, I think it's like The Hunt 411 or something. Yeah, The Missing 411, The Hunting. The Hunted, that's what it's called. The movie is called Missing 411, The Hunted. And if you skip to about an hour and 30, maybe an hour 29, hour 30, they are interviewing a guy from my high school, actually. His name is Matt. And he's 2 years, I believe he's 2 years younger than me. But I guess he's recounting a tale where, it's so weird to talk about it now, but he's recounting a tale that apparently in band camp, during band camp, we were rehearsing and he saw this bright orange light fly overhead of us, and then it kind of just made us all stop, and we just kind of looked at it and we're just like, what the fuck was that? And so he's describing this and I'm watching this happen. I'm watching him talk about this experience and I'm just like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that happening at all, period. In which then that got me thinking, did I get abducted by aliens and I just don't remember it happening? So now I'm having this slight crisis of, I think I was potentially abducted by aliens, and I just simply don't remember it now, as what you would do if you were abducted by aliens. Because, again, Matt's describing this thing, and I'm like, okay, this was probably my junior year of high school. At that point, we would have been having band camp at our high school, on our field. That makes sense. That all checks out. But then he's describing what time of day was it? It's around 6 or 7 on August night. And I'm like, 6 or 7. I'm pretty sure. I'm thinking when does sunset happen around that time? I'm like, I'm pretty sure sunset happens at that time. And he's like, and they're like, what color was the light? It was candle orange. And I'm like, is Matt just describing a sunset at this point? Wait a second. And so my friend from high school, JJ, he's the one that texted me this. And I'm telling him, yeah, I don't remember any of this at all. And he's like, dude, that's what, I don't remember this happening at all either. We were all, and we were all in band at the time. So it's I talked to Mark, I talked to our friend Bodie, none of them remember this event happening ever. And now we're just thinking there are one of two things about this. It's either one of us, either Matt's making it up for this movie. What is this?
You haven't done the
No, I haven't done anything.
You haven't played, have you?
No, I haven't played. I'm gonna play it today.
Well, shit.
You're gonna do the thingy?
Well, yeah, but I have to. You have to do all the stuff.
Oh, okay.
So you do the thing.
Okay, so where do I go?
I don't know, wherever the hell it tells you to go.
Alright, it says go to Nessus. So
the hell?
And it says complete the battleground behemoth activity on Nessus. Fuck it, let's go to Nessus. Fuck it. But so
anyway,
we're thinking either Matt is making it up for this movie, for this documentary, or again, we were all potentially abducted by aliens and we don't remember it.
And you got your mind wiped.
What?
I said, and you got your mind wiped.
And we got our mind wiped, in which I think it's much more interesting to say the latter rather than the former.
Sure.
But So yeah, I was potentially abducted by aliens. That's pretty cool, I guess.
I was watching the Maximilian dude guy that I've linked you videos to a couple times. Like the most recent one was that Fatalis video.
Yeah.
Where his controller disconnected in the middle of him fighting.
Yeah.
So he was playing Resident Evil 1, a modded version, with the original like PlayStation 1 really cringy, awful dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And he was getting drunk while he was playing it, and he was telling this ghost story. Because when he lived with his parents when he was really young, he was saying how he I need to turn the volume down. It's like crazy high. Sound on. Is there not a master volume? Because that's frustrating.
I thought there was.
Nah, there's no master control. Okay, that's a lot better. Anyway, so he was talking about how when he was a kid in his room, he is pretty sure he had like some sort of like haunting specifically in his room.
Okay.
Because when he would go to bed, he had like a little mobile of the solar system hanging above his bed.
Yeah.
And it would get really cold, and the mobile would start spinning, and it would sound there would be a sound like there was like a marble rolling across the floor right next to his head.
Interesting.
But he had carpets.
Oh, weird.
And this would happen pretty regularly apparently. And he went to go tell his parents, and the coolest part is that like his parents took him seriously. Mm-hmm. So his dad went up there to go check it out. And
wait, so he was
he
how
had
old?
Apparently
he was how old?
I don't know. He said he was like 9 or something. He was fairly young.
Damn.
And he said his dad went up to go check it out, just like hang out in there. And Max said that when he had left the room that the light was on. So when his dad entered the room, the light was off.
Okay.
And so his dad laid down in the bed. All the same stuff started happening. It got super cold. He heard the marble, and the mobile started spinning. And he came back up, and he's like, "Okay, something's happening in Max's room."
All right, so Max's room is haunted now.
Yeah. And whenever he would turn the light on, all the stuff would completely stop.
Oh,
and his dad had turned the light on before he left, and then when Max came back, the light was turned off again.
Amazing.
And apparently, there like a couple days later or a little while later, his mom was talking to this other parent that lived in the neighborhood, because her apparently the other people in his family also had like night terrors whenever they were in the house. I got the Strim Catalyst. Cool.
Nice.
Like just really horrible dreams. But apparently there was this neighbor girl who had like beyond night terrors, and she wandered into the street and she started screaming, "I don't want to buy any marbles from you." And it had turned out that there was some Native American activity previously, like settlements that had been kind of eradicated in the area that they grew up in. So, yeah.
Well,
he
that's fun.
Yeah, is a little terrifying and worrying. And I bring this up because I was one of the writers for DC Comics. I had you read some of his stuff, the Scott Snyder guy that I've talked about.
Yeah.
He posted this thing on Twitter about his 9-year-old son came into his room and was like, "Hey, Dad, can you move my desk chair away from my bed. And his response was like, okay, but why? He's like, there's someone sitting in the chair and staring at me. And he was like, so now I'm awake. I've always been very skeptical about stuff like that. Like I treat things like that like I treat kind of religion and like belief in God personally. I'm agnostic, but if there's like definitive proof, I'll be like, yeah,
shit's haunted.
That's pretty, like, okay, maybe just don't live there anymore. Maybe you need to find a brand new place to live. So yeah, that 2 instances of ghost stories that I remember right off the top of my head. My friends lived in what they perceived as a haunted house. But none of their stories ever seemed to like line up, but they're also like super like, no, this is super real. I'm like, none of you guys can at least get a consistent story straight. But those one, or at least the one with Max specifically, it was corroborated by his dad.
Yeah.
So that's
I feel
something.
like if that was Max's dad, I would have been like, I would have come out of the room and be like, all right, so we're moving.
We're moving immediately. So yeah, what were the subjects that you wanted to speak about today?
Oh, my subjects were just about things that have happened to me. So the first one was me potentially being abducted by aliens.
Yeah.
So there was that. The second one
never had anything like that happen.
The second one is how much I hate Premiere, and the third one is how much I hate iTunes. So
okay.
That's what I would like to talk about today.
Well, the Premiere thing, that's unfortunate, but the iTunes thing, that is entirely your fault.
Correct. This is correct. But so last week, no, not last week. 2 weeks ago,
really?
I couldn't put a video out because
I'm frustrated.
Because I was trying to I started editing my Moemon Fire Red playthrough. And I don't know what it is about Moemon. So I've edited videos in the past. I've edited my fair share of videos, and I've edited all sorts of different quality stuff. You know, I've edited Final Fantasy, I've done stuff in Destiny, I've done stuff in Monster Hunter. You know, pretty like some of them are pretty graphically heavy games. And they've all had some like as far as like graphically heavy in comparison to Pokemon. All right. Now with editing, for me personally, I like to render my videos before I edit them, and rendering, all that is just basically preloading them, so that way the footage actually is loaded in, so that way you don't drop as many frames when you're editing stuff, and it doesn't have to. It's already preloaded, so you doesn't have to like process it while you're watching it back.
Yeah.
And you know, rendering can take any amount of time from depending on how much like the graphics of the video, what's the video quality like, all that stuff. You know, a lot of stuff can range between that. For some, usually on average, rendering a 4 or 5 hour video for me takes about maybe an hour, maybe 2, hour and a half on average, I would say.
Yeah, your processor's pretty good.
Yeah, it's decent.
And the way
it's
that
decent enough.
You have a decent amount of RAM too, right?
Yeah, and I got a decent amount of RAM, so like it's pretty okay. It's not like the worst thing in the world. Now, when I went to go render my Moemon footage, guess how long Premiere told me it would take to render?
10 hours?
16 hours.
Jesus.
For 5 hours worth of Moemon.
That sounds like early 2000s downloading a 3-minute song on LimeWire.
Like I don't know what in the world. Like I went through like troubleshooting hell trying to figure out what in the world is making it load or making it render so unbearably slow.
Oy.
And I could not figure it out. Like, I went through everything. I tried to render it in, like, a different sequence. I tried to render it in chunks where it was hour by hour, which, oddly enough, just rendering it hour by hour made it take longer, actually. It took, like, over 24 hours for me to render an hour for some odd reason. I don't know why. But I was like, what are the settings at? There's 720p, like... Apparently, it tells you, like, how many frames it's rendering. The first part of my Moemon video had over 1 million frames in it.
What?
I don't know. I don't know, dude. I don't know. That's just it. I don't know.
Was it at 60 FPS?
Yeah, it was at 60 FPS, but I played a bunch of other stuff at 60 FPS as well. So that's not the first time I played at 60 FPS.
Yeah.
And so I was just like,
odd.
I went through everything to try and troubleshoot it, and I could not find a solution. So eventually, what I ended up doing was, I decided I was going to go to, I was just going to do what I've always been doing, is I would just download my VODs from YouTube, from the archive, and then I'll just and then I'll just edit them like that. So I had to test it out to see if it worked. And thankfully it did work. The render took, I think, about 45 minutes on that point. But I was just like, I don't know. I was just like so baffled because I also thought it was file size at first. Where I was like, the Moemon edit, the Moemon file, the original file, I think was like 9.3 gigs. And usually I'll upload to YouTube and I'll download them because YouTube compresses them to 30 FPS, as well as it just compresses the file down a little bit with very minimal quality, prop drops. But I was like, okay, is it the file size? Is that what's causing the problem? And so I took one of my Final Fantasy XIV videos, from my raid static, which are about no more than 2 hours long, but the file size for them is about like 15 gigs, and so I was like, all right, well, this is a little bit shorter of a video, but it's bigger data wise, so we'll see how long this takes to render, and we'll see if that changes anything.
20 minutes.
Yeah, it took I think about an hour. And I'm just like, well, it's definitely not file size, because that didn't happen. But so I've elected to download them on YouTube, off YouTube, and then use them and edit it that way. But I'm just like, again, I'm just sitting here like I don't understand what Premiere, what about Pokemon is making Premiere just go, me don't know render, da, 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 da. I'm just sitting here like, why? Just do the thing you've always done.
Why do you want to hurt me like this?
It's just, I couldn't fathom it. I was so confused.
Steam servers are down. As a result, some in-game systems will not be functional. Okay.
Oh, good. Dude, I was gonna play Monster Hunter, and the PlayStation servers are down, so I'm locked out of my games.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because I turned on my PlayStation because I was gonna play Monster Hunter, and it, you know how it has that little padlock? Because I was like, I tried to, it couldn't verify my purchase. So it locked me out of my games. And then it's like, you need to activate your PS4. I'm like, that's weird. I'm pretty sure I already did that. And so I went to go activate my PS4. And it's like, PS servers are down for maintenance. Can't do this. And I'm like, well, all right then.
What? Yeah, I was wondering, because I saw you on 14 and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're just not going to.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure what we were going to do today. So I was just like, I'll just play 14. Fuck it.
Well, that kind of blows.
Yeah, it was weird.
So I watched, it's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Okay.
It was good.
Did you cry?
No, I didn't cry. I did not cry. Huh? it was very cathartic.
Did you watch it with Emily?
I did watch it with Emily.
Did she cry?
Shh, did you cry? She did not cry.
Boo, you're both heartless. Soulless.
I mean, no, it was very sweet. But here's the funny thing is, like, I was expecting it to be the way that Lloyd was as well. Lloyd Vogel, the fictional character that is a writer who it was sent to do just a small little piece about Mr. Rogers, ends up writing this whole article about him. Anyway, because I was like, there's no way, it's impossible for there to be a person like him that's just solely dedicated to making people happy. Like, that was how I was. I was just waiting for there to be something wrong, which is hilarious because, like, he's gone. Like, we would know.
Right, yeah.
But, and I don't know. But now I know that he was just like one of the most wholesome, great people on the planet.
The world didn't deserve Mr. Rogers.
No, they didn't. And I'm glad that I did get to grow up with him, because I actually did watch quite a few of his shows, and that was really cool. So I didn't watch enough because I had cable when I was a kid. I didn't watch a lot of PBS once. I had cartoons, okay? Anyway, it was very good. I liked a lot of the actors. The performance was really good. Tom Hanks did a fantastic job. The only thing that I didn't believe it was Mr. Rogers, because it was like, it's Tom Hanks. You know, it wasn't somebody I could like distance my brain from. Like when Ben Kingsley was Gandhi. But he did do a very, very, very good job, and I decided to look into it a little bit more and like see how close the story was to like the actual events. And the character in the perspective character is a fictionalized version of a real person. But in looking that up, I found out that Tom Hanks and Mr. Rogers are cousins.
Really?
Yeah, they are sixth cousins. They had the same great-great-grandfather that came over from Germany, and his two sons are each their respective great-grandfather.
Huh. That's wild, actually.
Yeah. And Mr. Rogers, his descendants became the McFeelys, and then he became Fred Rogers, and his middle name is McFeely. I didn't know that until Emily told me last night. And Tom Hanks eventually became the Hankses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Rather interesting.
Yeah. That's wild, actually.
Yeah, right? And I think, like, it turned out he didn't even find out about it until they were making the movie, or after the movie was out or something. Huh. Somebody was just like, hey, we're just going to look at Ancestry. Oh, hey, look, you have the same great-great-grandfather. It's like,
wild.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I thought that was pretty dumb. Yeah. Steam servers are back up. Please log out and reset the game. Okay.
Mine doesn't say that. So I'm a little confused and concerned.
I'll just change my character. I liked it. It was pretty therapeutic in its own way.
Yeah.
It definitely got me thinking about some stuff and the way that I handle my emotions. But I don't know. Like, it was a good movie, and I'm glad I watched it. I think that it was paced really well, because it was just trying to tell a really quick story, it was only an hour and a half, or no, it was an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah. It wasn't too long.
But it felt a lot longer, but in a good way. Like, I got a lot of information, and it felt like a good amount. There was no point where I was like, okay, this is dragging on a little too long.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, I liked the journey that the main character took. I liked seeing the perspective that Mr. Rogers had on the Lloyd and life and people, and it just makes me appreciate Mr. Rogers as he was as a real person a lot more.
Yeah,
and people like Bob Ross and stuff.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about in the movie, or in the documentary, was they're interviewing, I think, one of the sons, and he's talking about like being Mr. Rogers' kid, and it was like I think one of my favorite lines from him, from what he says, was like it was very difficult to try to downplay people thinking that your dad is essentially the second coming of Christ. Like, that was, like, the hardest thing, was, like, trying to downplay it, of, like, no, he's just a good guy, but they weren't wrong, though, is that he really kind of was, like,
in a
like
way, yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, that was the one thing that I read, that people noticed the biggest kind of departure was that there wasn't a whole lot of religious leaning into Mr. Rogers' character in the movie, but it was like 100% of his life was because he was a minister.
Yeah.
And it was just that was who he is. Outside of the show, he was a man of God, and it was like, hey, that's cool.
It's fine. It's like there's nothing wrong with that.
He was just a wholesome guy.
He was just a really good guy.
So I don't know what. I don't know how much more I did than you. Like, I don't think I did much.
Okay.
If the thing that you're going to is the hailstorm.
Challenger's proving. I gotta go talk to the table.
Talk to the table?
The war table.
Oh, so you got to walk forward.
Yeah, go walk forward, talk to Salad.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition dump, and it's annoying because none of it even means anything.
I won't lie. So I'm glad that we're actually playing Destiny, because this is actually something I also want to talk about. I want to talk about Destiny. Since the new season started, with Beyond Light, it got me back into playing Destiny. I got peer pressured by you to buy.
No, you peer pressured me. You bought it before I did.
Okay, that's true. I did.
I wasn't gonna buy it, and then you're like, "Oh no!"
I got peer pressured to buy the Sparrow because you bought the Sparrow.
Yeah.
But so I bought the expansion. I bought the season pass for the next 5 seasons, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play this out, and I'm gonna see how this rolls, because Bungie has to convince me to keep playing this game. They're gonna get me for one more for this expansion, but if they can't convince me by the end of it, I'm fucking done. I just can't. But that being said, I also got back into playing because I started watching Datto and Jez, TH3 Jez on YouTube, because I'm like, oh man, Destiny looks really fun. I should start playing it again. In which
it's not a good idea to watch Datto, because Datto makes everything look fun, even when he's not having fun.
That is very true. Datto makes a lot of things fun. But so I decided to play, and from playing Beyond Light, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It was really, really exciting. They had more stuff to do, and all that good stuff. And a lot of the PvE, the thing is, like, a lot of the PvE stuff, I was like, there just wasn't enough before Beyond Light. It just didn't feel like there was a lot of PvE stuff, and it also felt like the grind was just not there. Like, it just simply, or not, I can't say it wasn't there, but it wasn't worth it. Like, it just didn't feel like the the grind was worth it at all, because it was such a slog for not a whole lot of gains. And so
I was having a problem
with Beyond Light. They kind of gave you a lot more PvE stuff. It's like, okay, that's cool. The grind was a little bit easier, where it's like, yes, I was grinding, but I didn't feel like I was just grinding just to get shafted, which was really nice. I actually felt like I was still leveling, even if I was like getting duplicates of armors, it was still going up in level. So I'm like, okay, well, at least it's going up in some aspect. I'm not just, grinding, spending hours of my time doing something just to get, a piece of armor that is the exact same level as what I currently have equipped. So that felt really nice. That was a good quality of life thing. And then the season happened, and the season was okay. Season 12, right? This is season 13, right?
This is season 13.
Okay, yeah. So season 12 was okay. I wasn't super invested in stuff, but I was happy with kind of how things were going on. And I was I had fun, learning new aspects for the stasis stuff, doing the seasonal activity, which were like the hunts and all that. That was really cool, I guess, for a little bit. I will say that Dedo actually put a video out talking about his thoughts for the season, and a lot of his thoughts I kind of feel the same way. It just kind of I will admit that it did feel a little lackluster for the most part. But at the same time, I would say that I didn't it was really awkward because I haven't played for so long that it's they want me to be invested in characters, but I just can't. I couldn't be invested in the Crow and his ordeal.
I'm invested in one character and he's dead.
Yeah, it's exactly. I was invested in Cade and he's not here anymore, so what the fuck am I supposed to be doing? But that being said, I think that's my biggest problem now is that Bungie is trying to get me invested in the story and the characters of this game, and I just don't care. I don't have a reason to care. That's also why I'm actually really interested in this season, because at least with this season it feels like we're going someplace, because this season's all about Callus's daughter and she's trying to take over the Earth or something like that. I didn't follow it all that much, but that's the gist of it, I think. And it's okay, that's interesting. That's what it comes off of, base Destiny 2, which you can't play anymore, but I was there when it happened. So I'm okay, I can get behind that. And then you have those little exposition bits. I actually don't mind enough, because at least it's not text-based where I'm just reading it. At least it's there's voice dialogue, you get the thoughts and feelings of people. It's okay, that's that's interesting too. And then you have the little side dialogue with Crow and Osiris, and I'm okay, we're slowly getting to.
I think like their little back and forth, and
it's they're seeing these little pockets so far. It's okay, Bungie is at least getting my attention in okay, Bungie, you want me to care. Well, I'll give you a shot. I'll give you a chance to make me care, and this is
I'm definitely.
A good way to do
I'm
it.
not. I wouldn't say I'm invested in the Crow as a character yet, but I do like that Osiris is hey, I'm gonna put my faith. Well, not my faith, but he invested in him a little.
Yeah.
Literally monetarily, but also. Because he gave him that new outfit, and it was kind of cool, because he's hey, I used to be in this position. And I was oh, that's weird, because, Osiris is this revered character.
Yeah.
And it's nice to one, get more backstory for characters that I feel he was pretty shafted in his own
expansion.
Yeah, I was that's dumb. But his characterization has evolved a little bit more, and I like it, so that's cool.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it's sure, I'm not invested, but I do like the potential of okay, I could see myself actually caring at some point, which is nice.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm like, I don't like the Crow at the moment. It doesn't mean I won't like him in a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested more than I have been in a while.
Same.
And I missed again. God damn it.
I have very high hopes for this season, which is a bit of a double-edged sword, because it's like I'm afraid that I'm gonna be let down by the end of the season, or by the time we finish like all the activity and stuff like that. But I also do like the fact that there is a little bit more direction in comparison to season 12, where it's like
dude, season 12 is so boring.
Yeah, we have like these missions, and like, because like with the way that the missions operated for season 12 was like, hey, you have the lure, go use it, and it's like, okay,
yeah, but why?
Like,
what is this?
Yeah, but like, but why
doing?
though? And then you have like the one mission at the end where it's like, all right, go do this final mission and kill the High Celebrate. And it's like, okay, you gave us that halfway through the season. What do we do for the rest of the season? Like, it just didn't. We stopped going anywhere, and that was like that's really frustrating. But at least with this, I don't know. Like,
you have to hit the orange.
I see that.
By the way,
I hit a side.
Can't hit it. Good job.
Yep. But but with this, at least with this mission, it feels like with these missions and like that, and like getting you started, at least it feels like I'm going somewhere. Of like, oh hey, okay, we're like Cabal are invading. It's like, okay, now go stop them. Like, oh okay, yeah, sure, I'll go do that. So at least I have like an objective to do, and I'm not just being given a lure. It's like, all right, you have to use this lure to fight the evil side, like the evil Hive people, and it's like, okay, but what does that do? It's like, it weakens the Celebrant, but it's like, we don't see the Celebrant. You can't tell.
Yeah, like, it's all arbitrary.
It's all arbitrary, like, we're just killing a boss. Like, okay.
Oh, hey, one thing I noticed with opening up Destiny today was that they're bringing back 2 Destiny 1 strikes, both of which I actually really liked, even though I've done them 1,000 times. They are very fun, and I don't think you ever did, because they were later in the Destiny 1 life cycle.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're pretty cool, and I'm definitely looking forward to them. That's what I like. I like strikes. I like raids. I don't care about
also like strikes,
any other content.
Yeah, I also like strikes, but that being said, strikes are kind of boring sometimes. Not necessarily because they're stale, but it's just like nothing changes with strikes.
No, I mean, and that's true. I mean, and that's kind of like the point of Nightfalls, is to give you that variation, but at the same time, like, Nightfalls they seem to be more trouble than they're worth. I got crushed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a little, it's like, I would rather not run it, just because, like, I can run a regular strike a lot faster and get basically the same rewards, and it's more of a lack of good, like, value to time investment trade-off. And that's probably my biggest thing in regards to, like, doing a Nightfall, where it's like, yeah, you get this stuff and it's cool, and you get to play the same strike, but it's like different now. It's like, yeah. I actually miss how old strikes operated, where they had variables, but it was timed, and so like they had like the different old Nightfall.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Old Nightfall.
Like, yeah, yes, except for that one time that it was like impossible.
Yeah, but like once they fixed that, it's like, okay, it's it's whatever.
Sure.
But I like that because it forced you to plan out, like, okay, we have to, they have this modifier. I'm specifically thinking about the one where it's like you have to hit the different cubes, and like it increases your time and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no, that one blew.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it sucked, but like I liked that it was
literally
a challenge.
Like, hey,
like,
you have to get better.
You had to coordinate, like you actually had to coordinate as a team, and I liked that. That was really interesting. Granted,
the one-shot melee thing was always dumb. Yeah. It was mostly like their detrimental effects were always way too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But their beneficial ones were not very good.
They didn't help enough.
No. Also, the putting a limit on like how much time you could gain back was a little stupid.
Yeah, but
especially in regards to that the cubes in the sky thing, you could only hit X amount of them and then it stopped doing anything. Whereas like other ones were just as many enemies as you killed, you would get time. Yeah. But that one limited you much faster for some reason. And it was kind of a problem. It was just like an issue with balancing.
Yeah. But I mean, in granted, I haven't done Nightfall. Like I've only done a handful of Nightfalls since they've changed it.
Yeah.
But from what I've done for them, it just kind of feels like a glorified time attack thing where it's like you just sort of go through it as quickly as possible and it's just like, all right, here's your prize if you get it. But that is awkward because it's like I remember running a Nightfall the Ordeal with some people and we got platinum, but we got like I think some blue gear, maybe one legendary gear, and I'm like, yeah, that's it for the highest rating. Like seriously,
that's exactly the thing. Is like your time investment to reward ratio is so bad. I mean, and that counts for the raids too. Mm-hmm. They're just unfulfilling. Like, is it so hard to ask that you don't get the same piece of gear several times in one raid run? You know, like when you and I and our group did the newest raid, I got one piece of armor and I got like 4 guns and 3 of the guns were the same thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, this isn't cool. Like, I mean, and yeah, random rolls and you get a different opportunity to try new stuff, but like, I'll just do that next week, you know? Give me the same gun next week and I probably won't care. But give me an opportunity to get all of the pieces of stuff first before you start. I don't know. That was my biggest issue with random rolls in general, because it's like, well, you already give us the same thing over and over and over again. I would rather just have a static roll that's always good, and then I can just work on caring about the next thing, as opposed to like, well, I want to get this gun and this gun, but I have to have these things on it, so I need to play it a bajillion goddamn times.
Yeah.
I will always prefer static rolls, but that's just me.
Yeah. I don't mind the randomization. At the same time, I just don't like, obviously it's awkward because it's like your luck is better than my luck is. So I mean, like, I always get shafted in getting anything that I ever need in any sort of game, whether it be Destiny or anything else. And so I'm like, I'm partially like, I don't mind the random rolls, even if my luck is shit. But at the same time, I do agree with the sentiment of like, I remember running the raid one night, and I think almost 90% of my drops, I got the exact same thing. I think I got like, because like you get a chest at the end of every encounter. And I think each chest, they gave me fucking boots all 3 times. And I'm like,
I mean,
why?
And is that fulfilling?
What's the
like,
point?
Does that feel like it's worth your time? Or does that feel like kind of a slap in the face? Because to me, that's always felt like kind of just a dick pull. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's like, cool. I'll just wait until I run it next week. Like, that's awesome, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just always bothered me, and it's something that I feel like is easily fixable. But Bungie they're like, no, we have to elongate our game. We have to give them reasons to play. And it's like, that would give me a reason to play, man. Like, I will play your game more if you don't make me feel like all of my time is being wasted.
Right.
That's the reason that I jumped off after the second what was it? Battle Pass season, or whatever they call it, the
season pass.
Yeah, whatever the season was called, because whenever the sundial thing came into play, I was really excited for it, but I was like, but am I going to be rewarded for my time?
Right.
And the answer was no. And I was super excited because Saint 14 is a cool character and he came back from the dead, and I still have no idea how. And I didn't get to experience that because Bungie didn't make it worth my time, because not only did they not give us a new raid, that was disappointing. And I'm not expecting them to give us a new raid every single season. That is an unreasonable expectation, but they didn't give us a new strike. They didn't give us a new raid. They didn't give us they gave us PvE stuff, but it was essentially the same thing as what we had just done with the Cabal and the basketball thing. And it was the forges. And I was like, that's just not entertaining. It's just kind of lame, And if this is all this season is going to be, this is pretty easy, but I'm just hoping that it will get better.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't, as far as going through these missions so far, first impressions of this season, I honestly don't mind it, because at least it's, if you have me grind a whole lot, I don't mind it as long as the grind is accessible. As long as it's as long as it's easy for me to get stuff, where it's because I watched Dado do a video earlier this afternoon of things that in order to do the hammer and all that stuff and how to do it. And it's you can get stuff from strikes, doing Crucible, doing public events. You can get the gold that you need for the hammer relatively easy. And I'm okay, if that's what I have to do, honestly, I'm not terribly upset about it. Primarily because of the fact that it's I'm gonna have it's very easy to access all the stuff that I need to do. It's okay, at least I'm not having to, I'm not forced to do the Malfeasance quest where I had to go kill Guardians in Gambit. I had to go kill a whole team 3 times or have someone else do it for me. At least I'm not locked into doing PvP or locked into doing Gambit. I can just do kind of whatever I want. So I don't mind the grind as long as I have the freedom of choice to do whatever I want to get the grind done, is where I'm at.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I am too.
Yeah,
I would say. So it literally just says do strikes or whatever.
Yes. Which I believe...
And I need to kill 3 bosses with sniper rifles.
That sounds like a lot.
To get the Adored. Because that's still something I haven't done.
Yeah, and another thing that Bungie's doing is that seasonal activities are gonna last all throughout the year until the next expansion, which I also appreciate, because it's like you said, it's saving Saint 14, doing all that stuff. It's we didn't get to experience it. It would have been awesome if we did, but 1, we didn't play it, and then 2, we just couldn't be interested enough to play it.
Disappeared,
and
too.
It disappeared. It disappeared after the season was over. And it's that sucks for people who, especially, not even just us as returning players, but new players who are getting into the game. That I feel that would have been an awesome moment to, do as a new player. And it's you can't do that anymore. And I might be wrong just because I'm not a new player, but doing the Crow mission, even though it was in the middle of the season, I did enjoy it. It was interesting. I like the fact that it gave us some sort of epilogue to that story. I would have wished something would have happened afterwards, or maybe they put it at the end of the season, because that would make sense thematically. But I did appreciate that it was there.
Definitely.
Where is the... Oh, there he is.
Complete. Oh, wow. You don't even get a weekly for strikes anymore.
Yeah, no, I think all that stuff is changed now it's put in the challenges, I think, for the most part.
Interesting.
All right, so to quickly shift gears,
I
talk about iTunes. So as embarrassing it is to admit, I unironically still use iTunes.
Yeah, you should stop.
I really should. Honestly, the headache that I had with iTunes that makes me want to talk about this makes me honestly want to switch over. The reason I don't switch over is just because I have this whole library of music, and I just don't want to have to go through the trouble of, like, transferring it over to, like, Spotify, and then, like, figuring out what I have, what I don't have, what I need to add, what can I add. Like, I just don't want to have to cross-reference manually, and I don't think there's a way for me to automatically do it, which makes me upset. So that's the biggest thing of, like, I just don't want to have to deal with that. But so, the problem I had with iTunes was I was using it one night, I was buying some new music, primarily because I had gift cards that my mom got me for Christmas, because, again, I unironically still use iTunes. And I was buying music, and I have them, the way I have it situated is, whenever I have, like, it's kind of like a tradition where when I buy new music, I like to put it in a playlist and then just listen to it all on repeat, just to, like, I don't know why, I just like doing it for some reason. But I decided to, what's the word I'm looking for? So I put it all in the playlist, and when I updated my iPod and then I ejected it out of my computer, for some reason the playlist, like, duplicated all. No, it didn't duplicate all of them. It duplicated some of my songs. So, like, in the playlist itself, the playlist has, like, 15 songs in it. But then some of them had duplicated themselves. So basically, instead of 15 songs, I would have, like, 25 of them for some odd reason. So I was like, I looked at it, it's like, so that's what it says on my iPod. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. I should double check the playlist on iTunes to make sure that it's synced up correctly. I checked the playlist on iTunes, and the playlist just has those 15 songs in it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. I guess maybe, like, a glitch happened or something like that. I'll just resync it again. Whatever. It ain't no thing. I did this about 2 to 3 more times, and I was like, all right, something is wrong here. I did a little bit more investigating too, and then also what I found out was that, like, so on the playlist itself, all the duplicated songs all the songs that got duplicated, the duplicate basically has, like, a download to the like, it's basically like it's on my iPod, but it's not on my iPod. It's very hard to explain, honestly.
Okay.
But
I'm kind of following.
But so just imagine that, like, in the playlist you have the song, and then underneath it is the duplicate, and that duplicate basically just tells me, hey, this song is not actually downloaded to your iPod. You should download it to your iPod, basically. And okay. I don't know why it did this, and I don't know why it's like that, but I'm like, okay, here's new solution. I'm going to delete my playlist. I'm just going to I'll just remake the playlist into something new. Like, I'll just remake the playlist, and then hopefully maybe, like, just basically default the playlist and just make it anew. Should, like, in case any settings got weirded out when I remade the playlist, like, I'll just change it up, reset it. That should fix it. Didn't fix it. And I'm like, okay. So eventually I just was like, all right, fuck it. I'll just manually make a playlist on my iPod itself, because you can do that, and I'll just say fuck iTunes, and I'll just won't do it on iTunes. It'll be whatever. That didn't work in the way that I wanted it to work, unfortunately, because of the fact that I found out that for some reason the song that is downloaded, again, this is very hard to describe, but the song that is downloaded, I found out, is not, apparently so, the song that is downloaded is the duplicate, and the one that is not downloaded is actually the real song that I actually bought, I guess. So, like, I put it in a playlist, and for some reason, so I've discovered now that my iPod is not, when it syncs up to iTunes, apparently is not downloading my music, but it is making a duplicate, and then it's downloading that duplicate onto my iPod, apparently, which is a very weird thing to describe. And yeah. I'm tempted to, like, talk to Apple about it, but I'm like, what can I say to Apple that doesn't make me sound like a fucking crazy person?
Right.
Like, I don't know what to tell them at this point, honestly. And I'm just like, I don't know. I honestly just don't know. I'm just sitting here in my wrongness, and I'm like, there's something wrong, but I don't know what to tell them that there's something wrong. So, that's where I'm at right now.
Just switch to Spotify.
Yeah.
So
I
easy.
honestly might have to, but it's like, here's another thing that I don't really want to do, is that Spotify does a monthly subscription, or monthly year. They do a subscription, regardless.
They do a monthly subscription.
They do a subscription, and I can't justify paying a monthly subscription because I don't buy music, or I don't listen to new music very often. Like, I very rarely listen to new music. So I just, I can't justify paying whatever it is monthly when I'm not...
Maybe $10.
Really, yeah, when I'm not, like, capitalizing, basically, on listening to new stuff.
Well, one thing that I have found that does help me justify it is that, one, like, with iTunes, like, you have a price per song, right? Or you have a price per album, or a price per collection. So, whereas on here, you have all the albums ever. Well, like, that you're looking for. Not every album ever. But, like, so let's say an album probably, it goes for, like, $25 on iTunes? Is that?
Depending on how many songs there are, I'd say average, like, 12.
12? Okay.
I'd say 12. Maybe.
Damn, that seems low. Because when I was doing it, songs were, like, $2.
They are on iTunes?
Yeah.
No, they're like they're at most they're like $1.29 per song. At most. I've never paid more than $1.29 for a song on iTunes. Like, literally, I've never paid more than that. We're about to find out that you just got, like, scammed from, like, some third-party iTunes.
No, I mean, I was using it on... I don't know.
Yeah, I've never paid more
Maybe
than
it was $1.29. No, yeah, because they used to be 99 cents, and then they had the HD, and then it upgraded to $1.29. Okay, that's right. Okay, so... Anyway, you can get a whole album, for $12, but let's say you only get one album a month or whatever.
Okay.
Like, you can listen to that whole album and just put it on repeat and have it in your, like, little, this is my jazz playlist or whatever, and then you eventually collect all of these different jazz albums. So you have all of this jazz playlist, and you get through it on Spotify. So not only can you collect all of those albums at once instead of over a length of time, you can collect them all at once. If you get through your whole playlist, it will just start playing more songs that are not in that playlist if you've listened to every song. So it, like, automatically starts playing stuff that it thinks would fit into this playlist. So, one, it helps you find new songs. They do have a radio, like a random radio station, and they have, like, various different playlists based on recommendations that they would give you. They also have started to do a lot of podcasts. Man, I should be getting sponsored by this.
Spotify, if you're listening, if you want to sponsor us, hit us up.
Yeah, sponsor me, because I'm giving you good rep, and to sponsor him so that he'll, like, have a reason.
No, fuck that. Sponsor me because I haven't joined Spotify yet, and if you sponsor me, then I'm more inclined to join.
Also, they have apparently pretty recently added a lot of, like, Japanese anime intros and outros, and they have a lot of video game music that I'm pretty sure is not available on iTunes, because I know that licensing works really weird. Because I was never able to get a whole lot of licensed video game music when I was using iTunes. Granted, that was back in the
I will admit that iTunes is very limited in its selection, because I was trying to look up some like Japanese pop music, and they just don't have it, and I'm just like, well, this sucks.
Spotify has jumped a way forward, because they used to have an issue with that too, but they have since added a whole lot, so that's pretty nice. What are we doing?
I was going to the ice thing.
Ice thingy.
For the new aspect.
I haven't even got all my old aspects, so.
Well, you're gonna get a new one.
Sounds good.
Did you talk to the stranger?
No.
Go talk to the stranger real quick.
She didn't have anything for me.
Oh. She got something.
Because I haven't done all the aspects.
Alright, then never mind. I guess we won't do that then.
I don't got nothing. Right, I need to do Empire Hunts or whatever. I don't actually even... I'm actually far behind. I thought we were just doing stuff to get this hammer thing.
Alright, we'll do that then. Alright.
I need to finish the Challengers Proving, and I need to get rocket launcher kills.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been interesting. What is this exotic quest? I recognize that symbol, but I have no idea what it's from. Legendary grenade launcher. Collect all 3 ornaments. Not looking forward to that.
So what else
have you been
doing?
I've been reading Batman Nightfall, actually. Okay. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Like what it is?
No.
Okay, that is it was either a late 80s, early 90s, or late 90s crossover event between like all of the Bat books, and introduced a new character, the character of Azrael, and he replaced Batman after it was the introduction of Bane, and where Bane broke Batman's back.
Okay.
And he was replaced by Jean-Paul Valley, who was Azrael, and Azrael became a new, very 90s, super edgy, I'm gonna kill everyone kind of Batman. So, my kind of Batman.
Oh, neat.
He was basically an early version of the Red Hood.
Oh, okay.
Which is awesome, because the Red Hood is a very, very awesome character, and I don't think he's wrong in most of the decisions that he makes. Because, like, if we're being honest, why would anyone let the Joker stay alive?
That's true. That's fair enough.
Like, I can't even believe that the police are okay with bringing him to jail and not killing him.
Well, I mean, the police just killing criminals doesn't look good regardless. So, I mean,
yeah. I mean, you're right, but, like, anytime he shows up, especially, at least in the comics, he has murdered people. And he's not usually, like, just willing to comply with police, and he has put up fights with the police where lethal force is justified. And I'm the kind of person that does not think that lethal force is necessary. And I'm in the camp of, yeah, just shoot him.
Yeah, just, you know.
I don't see a problem with that. Anyway, so it's been interesting. I don't really know a whole lot about Azrael as a character, even though he is a part of the bigger Batman mythos and Bat family.
Yeah.
He's been in DC Rebirth a bit, and I know that people like him, but I had never read a story with him because he kind of disappeared for a while because Nightfall was pretty divisive. Like, a lot of people like it and know about it, but it was a part of the crossover era fatigue thing that happened during the 90s.
Yeah.
When every book was doing a crossover. Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet and Civil War came a little later, but it's still a part of that whole thing and that idea. But I knew once I saw his costume, I was like, oh god, here's the Edgelord, and I'm gonna love him. He's gonna be my favorite character, and I'm gonna tell people, and everyone's gonna judge me for it. I would definitely recommend checking out the story. It's pretty cool. Because especially it gives some characterization to Bane that you really don't see a lot of. Because in most media, Bane is depicted as this big meathead dummy when he's actually, like, really smart. And that's his whole thing, is that he outsmarted Batman and he figured out who he was and was able to, like, stalk him without Batman noticing and then walk up behind him and break his back.
Jesus.
Yeah, like, Bane is insanely intelligent to the point where it actually rivals Bruce Wayne. Or Batman, whatever. And, like, that's never how he's depicted in media, in the video games, in the TV shows. Only a little bit in The Dark Knight Rises did you get any sort of semblance and feeling of that. Because, I mean, yeah, Tom Hardy's Bane was really smart, but they also toned down the I'm just a juiced guy who uses drugs to enhance myself. They basically just made him hold on. I'm trying not to die and also trying to kill this thing at the same time. There we go. Got it.
It is challenging, I will admit. It's very challenging.
He was much more intelligent than he was the beefcake, but the point is that he's both. So I think that media has skewed, I mean, not only Bane's characterization, but most characters' identities, because people read a comic and they're like, oh, I get it. And they only portray them in one way instead of, I don't know, a lot of people have an issue with how Superman is portrayed in film, because people are like, oh, yeah, I get it. He's Superman. He's, like, above everybody else. He's an alien and he's super powerful, so he doesn't need to understand humans on an emotional level. It's like, no. That's how a lot of people view Scott Snyder and his characterization of Superman and Man of Steel. Even though I like that movie, it is a very flawed version of Superman, because that is how he is depicted in that movie. Because he doesn't seem like he really cares about humanity, and he even mentions that. He's like, I don't know if these people are worth saving, and it's like, that's not Superman. Superman cares about all life all the time, because he's not an alien. He's more human than he is alien. He was born in Kansas. The man is, like, literally homegrown American. He grew up on a farm.
Literally American.
The point of him originally was to be, the point of him originally wasn't to be an alien. He was just a super person. Yeah. But still, like, the idea of Superman is to just be the perfect human, not an alien. He just happens to be an alien.
Yeah, he just happens to, Ironically, the most American person is an alien. Ironically.
Yeah. And I think that when you outside of maybe video games tend to do a better job of being able to flesh out more aspects of characters, it still isn't always perfect because you have a limited amount of time with the character, so they're like, we're gonna hit the bullet points. And with movies you have even less time because you have 2 hours maybe. So they're like, all right, what are the most defining features of the Joker? He laughs and he likes to murder people. And it's like, sure.
Okay.
Kind of.
Can we get some other stuff?
Yeah, it's not just that, but sure, I'll give you that. And so reading Nightfall, I has been interesting because it's given me a different perspective on a character that I always thought was just, oh, he's just the guy that uses drugs to make himself super strong. And as a kid, I didn't really tune into the fact that, like, venom is a drug and it's addictive and it's really bad.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, no, he just, he goes crazy whenever he doesn't have it, and his muscles get really big, and then he gets really angry, and it's like,
regard.
Man, I was really stupid as a kid, wasn't I? like, damn. So yeah, seeing his characterization be different than my expectation has been fun, because I like learning things about characters. That's why I really enjoy reading older comics now than a lot of the newer stuff, because the newer stuff plays more into the media's persona of and an expectation of what these characters are supposed to be, as opposed to like how they used to be. If you get what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I think so.
Like, Iron Man now is just Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man.
Yeah.
And he was not that before.
Yeah, I think older comics, I think they feel a little bit more original sometimes, because at that point you don't really have like a basis as to who's Peter. Like, when you, like, I think older comics, they ask the question of like, well, who's Peter Parker? You can't like say, oh, he's Tom Holland, or he's
Andrew Garfield, or
he's Andrew Garfield, or anything like that. It's same with Iron Man. It's like at that point in time, you didn't have an idea of, you didn't have an image as to who he was. But nowadays you just think, oh, he's just Robert Downey Jr. or Captain America is just Steve Rogers, or not Steve Rogers. Captain America is just Chris Evans. It's like, you don't. Yeah. But you have that now.
Exactly. I got another catalyst, but I couldn't see what it was.
I got Skyburners.
It didn't show it to me because there was too much text. That's frustrating.
Yeah.
Is it in Catalyst? Okay.
Yeah. I got Skyburners. Oh.
Sturm. Well, it might have been Skyburners.
I think it said I think you mistaken yourself from getting it, and actually I got it because it.
No, I got one too.
Okay.
I definitely got one.
Okay.
It might have been Trinity Ghoul or Skyburner. It was one of those two. Anyway.
Skyburner, so.
Maybe we just got really lucky and got it at the same time.
Maybe.
Never know. Yeah, and it kind of goes along with having read those or having been reading some of the X-Men, and especially I'm looking forward to rereading more of and having you read some of the X-Force stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting, and the way that those characters are portrayed is really cool. And there are characters in there that I know that you're probably not going to know, like Phantom X. I don't know who he is. I don't know anything about him. I know that he's really popular and people like him, and he likes to shoot 10-year-olds in the face.
Okay.
It's not necessarily a glowing recommendation.
Yeah, it's not like the greatest first impression, but okay, interesting.
Yeah. X-Force is like... Wow, we really got the same one. Anyway, X-Force is just dark X-Men. And that's kind of cool. Yeah. It's just edgy X-Men. It has Deadpool on the team. It's just edgy X-Men. God. You know, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm into edgy X-Men because I'm into edgy comics.
Because you're into edge.
That is definitely
you love yourself some edge.
Yeah, I don't care. I like me some edge. So I'm looking forward to getting to see how they change like Wolverine's character. I don't like this guy who's using a trace rifle. Is it you?
It's me.
It's you.
It's me.
It's Look, I got bounties, really man. Hard.
I got bounties.
I do too.
It's divinity.
I need to shoot things in the head and you make them stutter.
Yeah, well, be faster. Be more accurate. You have a mouse.
I have a sniper that takes a while to like kind of scope in.
That sounds like a you problem.
It is a me problem. Anyway, because Wolverine is very different.
Speaking of jitters, though, my game is jittering all over the place.
Why?
I don't know.
That sounds irritating.
That's very irritating. But I'm coping.
But the Wolverine that I'm reading is very different than any Wolverine that I've read and have seen on screen because he's interesting. He's cool and I like him. But he's definitely weird and kind of more jokey and quirky than just angry and murderous.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really the only thing that we see from him in like media is he's just the I want to kill everything guy, and
yeah,
that's also not who Wolverine is. Like that's kind of what Logan I think was supposed to show people is that Logan himself is like he's just a good guy. He's a good dad.
He's a good dad.
Logan's a good dad. He's a horrible father in the comics. Oh my god. He's such a dick. Because he actually has a son in the comics, and not a lot of people know about him.
Oh, I did not.
His name is Daken. And
well, with a name like Daken.
Apparently it's Daken. I've always pronounced it Daken.
Oh, right. Yeah, I also always pronounced it Daken.
Yeah.
Right.
But I guess it's Daken, not that it matters.
Yeah.
But ooh boy. And that's a character that it's like it sucks that we don't see him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because he is important to who Wolverine is now, because there was a point in time when Logan was like, "Oh shit, like I'm a dad and like I'm a dick, but maybe I should try and patch things up with him because he doesn't like me."
Better dad.
And well, that didn't work well. And Daken eventually became the new Wolverine, which was kind of cool because Dark Adventures was really good and unfortunately didn't last very long. Because people don't like change.
Yeah.
Norman Osborn as the Iron Patriot was really cool. Because, let's be honest, Captain America is really fucking boring.
Yeah.
Like, I like Steve Rogers.
Patriotism is all well and good, but man, howdy does it not make a great narrative.
No, like, I mean, and that's everybody's problem with Superman. My problem with Captain America is everybody else's problem with Superman. It's like, oh, he's boring. It's like, yeah, so is Captain America, but for some reason you're okay with it just because he's hot.
Yeah.
I mean, and granted, people also think that Henry Cavill's hot, but they just don't like... Uh-oh.
I think I'm disconnecting.
Same.
Everything's frozen for you as well.
No, the boss is, and it's just spinning.
Oh, mine's just sitting here. So.
The top's just spinning.
Well, I'm glad that yours is more interesting than mine is. Mine's not very interesting.
Anyway, Yeah, like, people have this preconceived notion that, like, Superman's bad because even though the actor that everybody loves him in was in a movie that people are, like, kind of lukewarm about. I guess I'll just turn that off. Superman sucks. And it's like, no, just please, somebody who has these ideas about comic book characters and really likes the Marvel Universe, just go read some of the comics, because it might give you a different perspective on the character. Not like, I hope that you don't like Chris Evans as an actor because he's so different from Captain America, because he is just Captain America. Like, there's no other way, like, not to knock Chris Evans' performance, but Captain America is pretty easy to nail. Whereas, like, I think that there is some complexity to Tony Stark as a character, and Robert Downey Jr. made it his own. And there are differences between the original version. And as much as I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he's not Peter Parker. And a lot of people don't realize that, because a lot of people are like, hey, they like Tom Holland so much that they're like, this is the best version of, he's the most comic accurate version of Peter Parker. And I've said this before on this podcast. No, he's not. Stop saying that. He's Miles Morales.
Yeah.
Which kind of is a, almost, when you think about it, a bigger kick in the nuts to fans of Miles Morales.
A little bit,
because
but I would also say that, like, I think Tom Holland is less Miles Morales nowadays, just because, like, what I like about Miles Morales is that he is growing and things are changing for him. So he's maturing, like, he's growing up, which makes sense, because that's how it should be. Like, it's a universe that has time and it keeps going forward. And it's like, well, of course it was, yeah. But, like, of course he's gonna, get older and things are gonna change in his life. And I like that at least with Miles, because it feels like it doesn't happen with a lot of other Marvel characters, is that, like, and this is I've said this on the podcast beforehand too, that it's like, with a lot of Marvel superheroes, there never really feels like there's any sort of growth. Like,
there's no consequences.
There's no
good or bad.
Of, like, it's just like things happen and it's like, bad things happen, and it's like, but then there's always just a reset. It's like, oh, that was a weird Tuesday. Let's go on to the next day.
That's why I think that Peter Parker, he's the most special character to me, and I'm talking about Peter Parker, not Spider-Man, because he is one of the few people that has a huge problem being one and the other, where Tony, he's like, yeah, he's Iron Man and he's Tony Stark, but they're basically the same person. Like, they're enveloped in the same idea. They're collected. But Peter has to keep them separate, but doing one hurts the other. And there aren't a whole lot of characters that are like that. Like, Bruce Wayne and Batman is nothing like Spider-Man and Peter Parker, because like, while they both have to carry secret identities, and Matt Murdock has to keep like his identity a secret from being Daredevil, it's like, it's still different, because Matt is a lawyer, so it kind of plays into his, like, justice thing. It still plays a part in his crime fighting.
Yeah.
But Peter's life as a superhero has zero bearing on his, like, personal life. Like,
at least because not a whole lot. It's not a huge.
He's an adult now. He's not taking pictures of himself for the Daily Bugle. He hasn't been doing that for like 20 years in the comics.
Right.
And that's another thing that people don't know, because they don't go and read a comic book. They're like, oh yeah, no, he works at the Daily Bugle.
He still works at the Daily Bugle.
He was a professor. He owned his own company. He was richer than Tony Stark. And it's like, yeah, cool. Let's do more of that, because that is actual character growth. And then there's a new writer comes in, and or like an outspoken group of people are like, hey, we don't like that. Make Peter how he was, and they're like, okay, reset button, like you were talking about. And it's like, well, we got a little bit of growth, and you just decided that you didn't like it because Peter needs to be depressed. Like, why can't Peter just be happy? Just let Peter be happy.
Yeah.
How is that so hard? That's probably my biggest problem, and why I want to get into writing. And I've talked to you about it before. Like, I just want to make some of these characters happy. Just I was reading Superman Rebirth a while ago, and it was very good, and it was like what really got me into Superman comics, because I've read some of them before and they're okay. Some of them are really, really good, like All-Star Superman, which I believe I had you read, right?
What was it again?
All-Star Superman?
Yes.
Yeah, where it was an Elseworld story, so it didn't have anything to do with main continuity, and it was a different Superman, but it's a very Superman story, and it stands out because this is like him dying. He got space cancer. Yeah. He was overexposed to the sun. Anyway, and like, so there are ramifications to his actions, and they're like, it's more meaningful, and characters need growth. And that's, I think that, like, I'm not a big proponent of the Spider-Man family. Like, I don't like Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales and Eddie Brock and all these people. Like, I like the characters, but I don't think we need so many of them. Like, right, yeah. My personal view would be kill the clones, kill Kane, kill Ben Reilly, which sucks because I love Ben Reilly. He's one of my favorite characters. Make Eddie Brock a villain again at the end of this current Venom run, or have him very, very, very rarely talk to Spider-Man. Have Miles be like his protege, but like stop being Spider-Man and be his own character. I think would be interesting, because like there's already confusion, because it's like, oh, there's Spider-Man and then there's Spider-Man. Like, there's no differentiation between the two other than like, oh yeah, there's the white Spider-Man and then there's the black Spider-Man. And like, that's not really a good distinction. You know, that's not a good way to be able to differentiate between these characters, because they are both Spider-Man, but there are stark differences between the two. One is younger, one is more experienced, the other one has different powers that the other doesn't, one has experiences that the other doesn't, and they're not the same person. And so they shouldn't necessarily be treated as the same character. So seeing Miles move into his own spot, away either like as an equal to Peter, or like to completely distance himself from Peter or something, get rid of Spider-Gwen. I know people like her, but just have it be Peter, Mary Jane, and a kid. And I don't care what the kid is. I don't even care if this kid has powers. The kid is. But just make Peter happy. Just please. For once, just let Peter be happy. Have him run the goddamn Daily Bugle. Something.
Yeah.
That doesn't really sound something like he would do.
I would like to keep the Spider-Gwen, because I like Spider-Gwen, because I like Spider-Gwen at the fact that it's contained in its own universe, and I like that it puts a spin on a lot of different characters, because and it's
an alternate universe story where you get some goofy stuff happening, and that's cool. I do like that. Yeah, and occasionally, like, things are starting to like cross over a little bit, and that gets kind of weird. But I do like the fact that. But here's the thing: is that I appreciate that Spider-Gwen is. Already, Spider-Gwen has, like, they've already set it up as she's a very independent super heroine. Yeah. And that, like, she doesn't need Peter's advice for how to do stuff. She hangs out with Miles just because they're friends. And that doesn't tangle with anything else. I like that it feels very fresh and original. Like, she is trying to be. She's a superhero that everybody knows who she is,
and she actually went to prison because she was
right.
she was a superhero. And I like, it's a very different take, which I don't mind, because I like that it feels independent enough that it's not it doesn't pollute anything for the most part.
Right. I think my big thing is like what Spider-Verse happened, and I don't know if you read it, and like it had the potential to be really cool, but the idea for Spider-Verse, the event, not the movie, was that it's every Spider-Man that's ever existed all coming together and fighting against an enemy that is killing all of these spider people, like Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Spider-Girl, Spider-Pig, Spider whatever. All of these spider things were dying because they were being hunted down. And it was cool. The idea was cool because you get to see all these different, spider characters interacting from alternate universes and new ones existing and whatnot. But like, the one thing that I wanted was like, hey, we know who Peter Parker is. He is inarguably the most important Spider-Man because he's our universe's Spider-Man. He's the one that everybody should be looking up to. He's the one that everybody should be listening to. And everybody just constantly shits on him. And it's like, he's the Spider-Man. He's the original one. He should be leading everybody. He should be like the dad to all these people. Even if there's an older version, it's like, hey, like, I went through what you did. You tell me what to do because I, should listen to myself, kind of thing. Instead of like, as much as I like the Superior Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus, it's like, hey, maybe don't be a dick.
Yeah, maybe
just for a second, because maybe Peter knows what the hell he's doing. And that's the problem with the Spider-Verse in general, and the idea of a spider family is nobody listens to Peter, even outside of the spider people. No one listens to Peter, and he's one of the smartest people on the planet, and they've even mentioned that. He just doesn't get to utilize it because his life is so shitty.
Yeah. I feel it's very odd that I feel like Spider-Man used to be, because I think Spider-Man's whole thing Spider-Man used to be this very jokey character. He cracked jokes. Look how life is all terrible. It felt very comic-esque, but not like as a comic book. It was more like a comic strip in like a newspaper, like in the funnies,
like kind of Calvin and Hobbes-esque.
Yeah,
he would just crack jokes, and then eventually, like, sometimes it got serious.
Yeah, and I think the problem with that is that the problem that has now come to pass is that that's still there. Like, again, there's like, yes, Peter has grown up, he's matured, his life has moved on, but we're still, the themes that Spider-Man still has to deal with, we're still stuck in the past where he's just a joke, and it's very upsetting, especially if you're a fan of Spider-Man, because you want, like you said, like, you want Spider-Man to just be happy, but for some reason, the writers at Marvel was like, no, haha, look at Spider-Man, he's a joke, and it's just like, but no,
right?
He's not, though.
I was listening to this podcast talking about, they were reviewing some comic, and I can't remember what happened. But it was some X-Men book. It was Astonishing X-Men by Joss Whedon, the guy who directed the second Avengers movie, and he directed Firefly and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he's written quite a few comics. But there was this X-Men run he had, and there was like this massive bullet shot from a different planet at Earth, and there was no way really to stop it, and so Kitty Pryde phased into it, and like when she phases into, because they thought it was a missile, And when she phased into it, she realized there was nothing inside of it, because the idea was that she would phase into it, and when she phases through electronics, they like short out. So if she would phase into it, the missile would deactivate and it would just stop going. But it was just solid bullet. So there was no way to stop it because it had so much force. You can't slow it down. So as it was approaching Earth, a bunch of superheroes started to kind of band together and try and figure out how they were going to do it. And Reed Richards was like, oh, I'm going to create a portal. And right before it hits the Earth, it's going to go through the portal and then come out on the other side of the Earth at a different portal. And like Ms. Marvel imagined that she was punching it or something. And then all of these superheroes, it turned out that they were hallucinating, and they were like they were drooling because their like minds were being controlled into thinking that they had fixed everything while the bullet was coming so that nobody could stop it.
Right.
Well, Peter was also hallucinating, and he hallucinated that he stopped it just by webbing it up. And he's like, yeah, I did it. I did it. And then he's like, hold on a second.
Wait.
I can't do that. That's impossible.
Logically, like, that doesn't make sense.
Well, he's like, no, there's no way I would be able to do that, because his self-esteem is so low, he knows that he wouldn't be able to do it, so he snapped out of it and woke everybody else up and made them all do it.
That's so depressing. To know that your depression is so bad that you know you're dreaming.
Yeah, he was so depressed in his like lack of being able to stop something on that level that he's like, oh, I'm not actually very good at what I do. So eventually what happened is that Kitty inside the bullet phased the bullet through the planet, which is cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
But she kept traveling through space, and she had to stay phased, because if she had to stay phased inside of it, because if she phased out of it, she would just be in space.
Right. That's not a good thing.
Eventually, later on, Magneto pulled the bullet back, even though theoretically it would have traveled millions of miles, because you don't lose momentum in space. Yep. You keep going roughly at the same speed. Yep. So, yeah, that would have been impossible, whatever had happened. Anyway, yeah. But, like, I feel like that was really a really interesting way for them to present Spider-Man, but also it was really depressing, because it's like, yeah, that's kind of an example of exactly where Marvel is leaving Spider-Man. He's a joke even to himself.
Yeah, and I think it's
really sad.
It's very it's upsetting to think that thinking of it that way, it just kind of feels like Marvel just doesn't care, or they're just out of ideas. Yeah. And that's a very upsetting kind of thought to have, of like, really, like, you're that out of ideas for a character that like you just have to make him depressed all the time because you can't think of anything else creative.
I think that's kind of the direction that a lot of people have taken their ideas of these characters, even if that's not the way that the writing necessarily is. And it sucks. Like, everybody thinks that all of the Marvel heroes are cool because their movies did good and they liked them. But, like, Ant-Man's okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the fear
He's
of
not Paul Rudd.
It's deviating from the norm, and it's like, well, unfortunately, if it doesn't sell well, then you're not gonna want to make it anymore. But but that's the whole part of being creative, is that you have to take those risks. And it's like, if it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, all right, try again, go to next. I
thought it was so cool, the Parker Industries thing. I really liked it, and I love the Parker Industries honestly thing, but again, devastated when they shut it down.
Yeah, and like, I would love to know why. I'm sure there's a bunch of red tape as to why they couldn't do it anymore. But like, that's an original storyline that, like, it was really interesting. It's really creative. It shows that, you know, Peter is maturing, he's growing up, he's moving on with his life. But then Parker Industries goes under, and now we're back to same old Peter Parker, and nothing's interesting, and it's just that was something creative.
That Peter basically built on his own. too. And like that was something that you saw because I think that started in like 2008 or something.
I think so, yeah.
And Park Industries, I think, stopped in 2016. So this was something that had been building up for about 8 years. So like it was something that Marvel was okay with for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And there was actual build up. There was like a payoff that like there were highs and lows around it and you could see its progression, but it didn't last more than like a year or two. And it was like the man became richer than Tony Stark. Granted, at the time, Tony Stark had lost all his money, but still,
but even
it was
even
really
still,
cool.
It's just like,
and he had a new like way to deal with his problems. He wasn't depressed all the time. He was still stressed because like he was able to pay for an apartment for his aunt and like his life was going to go.
At least like, with his stress, there's a new set of problems that's giving him stress. It's not just
he
the same
had to hire somebody else to be Spider-Man.
Yeah,
because he had to actually be the face of a company instead of just Peter Parker. I take pictures.
Yeah, but but now with Parker Industries going under and essentially resetting Peter Parker as a character again, we're stuck with the same.
Anything.
He's not doing anything. We're stuck with the same.
I don't know if he has a job
or even similar. No, because he's a student right now. The last I saw, he was a student.
No, he's a professor.
No. He
went back to college.
He went back to school because he was accused of fraud. He was accused of student fraud.
Okay, technically
is
they're
true.
Not wrong.
But
yeah, technically he got his degree using somebody else's brain.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's technically not wrong, but at the same time, it's like, all right, well, you're wrong, but you're also right. Yeah. But it is really awkward. But at the same time, it's like, but we're back at the same old storyline of like Peter's in school. He's got to balance, his superhero life with school and whatnot. And oh boy, hope he makes it to his midterm on time.
Yeah.
Woe is me. It's like,
the only
that's
good
not
thing that
interesting.
makes it feel like he has matured is that he's in a good relationship with Mary Jane again. But the problem is we had that 40 years ago.
Exactly. It's like it's the same thing that's already been drawn out, and it's just uncreative.
And it's like I want to be really excited for the Nick Spencer run, and I am, and I'm really happy that he's like, hey, I'm gonna take this back to the direction that it needs to be. But it's like, here's the problem: is that now we have to get back to that point, and then we have to go forward, and that's gonna take several years. It's people don't like waiting, and like I don't like waiting. I'm an impatient person, but man, it's frustrating. Just let superheroes be happy. Yeah. Like I wasn't a huge fan of Batman marrying Catwoman, but like, what's the harm?
Exact right.
What's so bad about that?
It's like, what's so bad of it? If anything, it's more interesting because it's a new set of problems.
Exactly.
At least that's interesting.
Batman has a son, and a lot of people weren't super okay with it, and a lot of people still don't like Damian, but like, hey, that's characterization. It gives Batman a different outlook and a different perspective, and maybe, hey, like, a dad is going to look at Batman differently now that he has a son, and you get to see like Batman's decision making. Well, think about if he's married or he has another kid and like trying to balance that. Like, there's so many different stories that could come out of it, but now they're just telling Batman versus Joker for the 800th time.
It's very awkward because it's like
cares.
At one point I don't want to be super critical, but at the same point, like, I think you could say that like I'm being aggressive and I am attacking, and like you're attacking the writers of Marvel and DC, and to that I would say yes. Yes, I am, because
be more creative,
be more interesting. If anything, it's upsetting to have these really interesting plot lines go away and have them reset, because it's like, why have them in the first place? And it just feels like a stupid stupid out of like,
Feels like a
why
waste of
would
your
you?
time.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. It's like, why have these things? You're not going to do anything about them. If like, it's one thing to just have them and then just never like address them, because at least they're still there. But to just get rid of them, it's like having a piece of gold and then just throwing it away. Like, right? I don't need this. Fuck that. And then being like, oh, and then fast forward, several weeks later, and you're asking yourself, oh, why am I poor? And it's like, well,
maybe if you hadn't thrown,
it's like maybe if you hadn't taken one of your creative outlets and flushed it down the drain, you wouldn't be in this situation.
Did you?
And it's hard to be sympathetic in people who say it's like, oh, it's like, where would they go creatively? Or like, what would they do? What would they do this? And it's like
literally anything.
Just don't do so many outs. It's like you had so many outs. It's so hard for me to feel sympathy to people who would counter argument that. It's like what are you doing, man?
I do like it's equal parts the writers, the editors, and when I say editors, I mean like top level people who are allowing or not allowing certain things to happen, and readers, because anytime a new villain gets created, it's almost always met with
yeah,
but really, you always complain that you're seeing all of these characters fight villains that you've seen for 30, 40, 60 years, but you're not okay with there being new villains. But you're also not okay if Bruce Wayne stops being Batman. But you're also not okay if Bruce Wayne doesn't make any forward progress in his fight on Gotham. Like, people are never happy.
Yeah. So,
like, yeah, I don't want to just outright say writers aren't creative, because it's because editors and like Warner Brothers are like, no, Batman has this image, he needs to say this way. And also the readers will stop buying the book if they don't think that Batman is acting the way that they want him to. So writers are essentially forced to handcuff themselves in certain ways because nobody wants change.
Yeah. And again, it's hard to criticize people because there's obviously so many other factors to it, and like you can't fix a problem just by saying, oh, hey, do this, do that, just be better, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it is frustrating, like you said. It's like maybe it's just we don't understand because of, we're not part of Marvel, we're not part of DC. There's so much more red tape that is in those in those industries than maybe
it's especially hard now because of their parent companies.
Yeah,
like Warner Brothers is now owned by Time Warner, who owns HBO and all these other things. So not only do they now have to adhere to Warner Brothers guidelines, they have to adhere to AT&T's guidelines and Time Warner's guidelines, and then Marvel has to adhere to Disney's guidelines.
Yeah,
which is a whole other thing.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because I forget who I was talking to. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I remember, I think this was back in college, but it was like we were talking about media, and I think this was back in one of my media classes. But we were talking about media, and we were talking about how come businesses don't do this and how come businesses don't do that. That's what it was. We talking about why don't businesses do more in charity work? And it's like, there's so many problems in the world, and there's like the world's on fire, there's forest fires, we're running out of resources, everything's awful. And it's like, well, why you have all these big businesses with all this money and all these resources? Why don't they do anything? And bless this person's heart, because again, she was very wholesome about it, but she just didn't get it, because she just was like, well, it's like, how come they just don't do it? And I remember flat out telling her to her face, just out, I didn't even wait for someone to respond. I just go, because it doesn't make money. That's the number one rule for
giving
any
away your
business.
money doesn't make you money.
Exactly. It's because there's no interest there. Sure, you could run the argument of if you help them and you give them money, they're more inclined to spend it. Yeah, sure, but that you're not getting any sort of profit immediately. And that's the bottom line for any business, is that, do you get profit? Yes or no? No, then I don't care.
Then it's a risk that's more than likely not
Exactly. They could, yeah. And then if the answer is no, also you have to ask, is it worth it? And if the cons outweigh the pros, then it's like, fuck it, we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's not worth it unless it's like purely for public image.
Yeah, and it's frustrating for that sort of red tape that comics have to go through. It's that if it doesn't sell well, then you're not gonna see it again, and that sucks.
Yeah, there's a lot of independent comics that I've read that are a lot better than some. I won't even say like a majority, but some of the main title studio whatever publishing brands that are out there.
Yeah.
There's a comic I read called Translucid, and it's a 6-issue series. It was published by Boom Studios, which is a tiny little studio. Well, not tiny, but they make a very small amount of comics, but they're like Image, but even smaller. And a lot of their stuff is really good because it's all, I think, as far as I know, it's all creator-owned stuff. And they're just small, independent little runs. And it was just a different take on the I don't even want to even say Batman Joker dichotomy, but it was just hero villain thing. And it was very good, and I wish there was more, even though there was a beginning, middle, and end. It's just, I wish there was more stuff like that. Like, it's okay for Marvel to create more superheroes because, man, if you're not going to do something new with Spider-Man, make somebody else. But also, fans need to be okay and receptive to new ideas.
Yeah, I would admit that it is definitely a two-way street. That's, writers have to be, not writers, but I would say like businesses, you have to be okay with taking that risk and understanding that it's like, sometimes it's not going to pay off, but boy howdy, when it pays off, it feels so good. But at the same time, fans also have to be okay with that. It's like, look, we're going to try this. We're going to hope you like it. You might not, but we'll see what happens. And I, for one, am vastly about, it's like, okay, you can, like, sure, try it. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, then let's move on. And maybe you and I are in the minority, that the things that Marvel has tried for Spider-Man, maybe we're in minority, that we enjoyed it and we liked it, but maybe the majority of people didn't like it. And who knows? I
don't know. You and I, well, you really like Laura Kinney, and I like the idea of Laura Kinney because I didn't actually read the comics.
Yeah.
And you and I both really liked Jane Foster Thor.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily super excited for the Jane Foster Thor movie, and that's just because I don't really like how Jane Foster has been portrayed in the movies. Not anything about Natalie Portman. I just don't think that the character of Jane Foster is interesting in the MCU. If they change her drastically in the movie and she's a lot like the comic, then dude, I'm already sold. On a hypothetical that I have no idea whether it's not even gonna happen. But like those were Jane Foster Thor, Miles Morales, Riri Williams, Laura Kinney, the Falcon as Captain America. Like all of those were big risks, and only, I would honestly say, 3 of them paid off. I mean, but hey, 3 out of 5 is pretty good.
It's not bad. It's not terrible.
And like all of those, except for Miles, are not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Even if 3 of those 5 were popular. So it's not even like a lot of those books actually sold well. It's just Marvel's like, all right, we're going to go back. For no reason. Because Jane Foster Thor was continuing to sell really, really good. Granted, it was all a part of Jason Aaron's idea. Like, his whole thing was to go from Thor to Jane Foster to Thor again. Like, that was his whole thing. I'm sure that Marvel was like, but you're gonna make him a guy again, right? I'm sure that was there because they have to keep this image of Thor in a certain way. But still, like Laura Kinney could have been Wolverine forever, and I really don't think people would have cared that much, because a character can die. It's happened before. Characters have died forever. Captain Marvel, like the original one, the guy that died of cancer, has been dead since the 80s. And people are still impacted by it, but he's not come back, and people are okay with it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Have a death like that stick so it has meaning, but don't do it like Death of Wolverine, because Death of Wolverine sucked. It was so short.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, I think that's a perfect way for us to end this episode of the C+ Podcast. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed Hex and I talking about all this stuff. You can find this episode, you can find it on YouTube next week. But yeah, tweet at us, join our Discord, let us know how you feel about Marvel and superhero comics in general. Do you like how they are? Do you even read comics? Let us know. Also, let us know, how do you feel about Destiny 2 and all the other stuff that we talked about? Do you like Mr.
Go
Rogers?
watch it. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Do you also use iTunes unironically? Let us know in the Discord. Tweet at us at Shogun Shin and at Hex Ginkgo.
And then switch.
Also switch to Spotify. Yes. Anyways, but like always, though, I am Shogun Shin. That is my co-host, Hex Ginkgo. This has been the C+ Podcast, and we will see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.